Hello, panelists. Hey.
Hello.
So the topic today is building the future state, and particularly using Estonia as the example in this case. There's a bunch of stuff to cover. I think one of them that really lays the foundation is how Estonia is kind of innovating in the ways that we've discussed in context of Robotex throughout these panels. One use case that we talked about a little bit before the panel was AI and how Estonia itself is integrating AI. So I thought maybe you guys would enlighten me a little bit about how that's happening and what the initiatives are that are using AI in particular.
All right. Well, I can start probably in this sense. Well, so when it comes to AI, I mean, Estonia, long story short, we perhaps were not the first ones to really go into the scene for a few reasons. The funny thing is also that I remember when we were doing the longer-term digital strategy, that was about 5 years ago. That was we had an actual discussion: will AI be a thing in sort of near enough the future? And we had consultants from all around the world and sort of come to say no guys, don't bother. It will be in the labs. Well, it's here. So long story short, we are really trying to sort of catch up quick, and the way we work is literally on 2 or 3 streams at once right now. Well, first of all, when it comes to the policy level, right, then by next spring, when we have a new government coming in, we will have the proposals on the table and ready in a sense of how do we boost uptake of AI in both the economy as well as sort of government more specifically. But we don't just work on policies. In parallel, we have already started, which is my field, on very concrete examples, projects, pilots in the public sector already, and sort of also that the policy we come up with won't be just like an exercise of theory, but really, I mean, based on the actual trials in the government scene here. And the third thing is that, so in this context, we are also looking into the legal side of AI and how to enable really the use of autonomous systems and see, are there any gaps in terms of regulation? I mean, the previous panel briefly touched upon this as well. We don't rush into regulating, but we just rather want to see, I mean, these are some things we need to do to really sort of boost this field, for example, to fix liability or other sort of issues that are there. So in long story, we move fast now, even though we started a bit later.
I think that's one of the more interesting things about Estonia, and just for context, I'm an American working for the Estonian government. I think that's one of the most powerful things that Estonia has, is this ability to recognize changes, and because it's a relatively small and can move quickly, even from a regulatory standpoint, they can kind of help facilitate the adoption of new technologies in the private and public sector. So.
I mean, look, man, but obviously I'm biased, right? But because of the work I do, but I mean, what's our other chance in the world? I mean, that's exactly, I mean, sort of where I see that that's our only shot to really be someone in the world, right?
Yeah, and from, Startup Estonia takes care about the startup ecosystem and kind of communicates to our actual startups and organizations on a daily basis. So from the grassroots level, there is a lot happening in the AI sector as well. Like we see that the conferences are popping up, North Star AI, which is now actually taking a lead in being in the Nordics, one of the most technical conferences about that topic. Then we have more and more attracted startups coming from foreign countries, specifically asking that, what is there to do in AI? Could you put me in contact with the relevant partners? So let's say that Estonia is getting a notion of bringing AI talent in. Now it's our thing to do, like how can we actually soft land them? How can we offer them that, yes, we are open to test, we are open to put you together with all of the relevant partners here.
There was an email thread where it was mentioned that Marika would like to speak about Estonia as Founderville. And Founderville being a hub for...
You see them laughing already?
For international...
No, for good reasons, because I mean, that sounds like a theme song for the country, right?
Yeah.
So first, I'd like to hear a little bit about what exactly the vision for all of you of the future of what Estonia could be is. And then I have a follow-up question, but let's go with that first.
Okay, so from my own perspective on my daily job, like I'm putting together a new vision, what our startup ecosystem could be like. And yes, I've come up with a topic of Founderville, or kind of like an aspiring hub for global innovators. And I really believe that Estonia is already in a sense, but that we could brand us or message us more towards that. And if the previous panel was talking about having role models, then Estonia has been having that innovator role model for past 12 years. So we've been having, for our own young generation growing up, we've been having a true innovator Lotte with the animation film, and the whole generation has been growing up with that notion. Come on, if you go out from this conference to the expo area, we have more than 1,000 children today competing there to be the best team, the best innovators. So this is already happening. Now the thing is, like, how can we take this to another level that globally really be kind of accepted as the Founderville? And why Ville is because we are small, and you know, the community and the effort is there, as in a true village, I would say.
No, I mean, it's an actually, I think, very cool sort of vision, and clearly this ties very well also to the E-Residency stuff that we've been working on, right? I mean, that's a leeway to you now.
Yeah.
So what you're doing there?
Yeah. I think it's quite fascinating that Estonia, even the government, has kind of taken the lead in not only working with private sector companies, but also pushing the public sector to move faster and to kind of incubate new ideas. So I think it's a very incredible opportunity, and this is also my personal vision for where I want government to get. Where, you know, I kind of grew up with this idea of government is this slow behemoth that can never compete with the private sector, and that the private sector is better at everything. But I love the idea of saying, like, okay, even though we're the public sector, we can move just as quickly as these private sector guys, and we're not gonna compete with them necessarily, but we're going to stand lockstep with them and even out-innovate them sometimes and help support them. So I think that's interesting, from moving from this regulatory standpoint, and even, you know, building a founder city or building new programs that are maybe more innovative than what you're seeing in the private sector sometimes.
Yeah, but we even joked about this, like beginning of the week, that we should have there's a lot like an innovator village, like an amusement park. Why shouldn't we have like a true innovation park where you can come in, like, you know, drones flying, everything testing, the autonomous vehicles, all of this happening, but also that we are actually open to everything, so that we can make the changes as a country fast enough.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to this is, what in the world makes you think Estonia is the one that's capable of pulling this off? What is it that makes you uniquely qualified, or what has driven the success here, and what's going to make it possible in the future?
Well, I mean, I think it's the track record. I mean, they've kind of established themselves as being able to do this. I mean, for a country that doesn't have the most, you know, the longest history or the most resources compared to, you know, the German scene or to Silicon Valley, and how much money or VC funds there are there, the amount of innovation, the amount of unicorns, the amount of, you know, just laudable innovation in the public sector is incredible. So I think the track record has established that Estonia can do this. And, you know, I don't really believe that there's one winner in everything, that like there could only be one Google or one whatever. I think probably there will be a bunch of winners and a bunch of countries that do a bunch of things very well. But I think Estonia has a real chance to be one of the best, if not the best.
I think you really sort of said out what I wanted to say. I think clearly Estonia won't be the only one, right? And I mean, so basically we are playing to be one of them, one of these sort of hubs and sort of centers. And I mean, both still, I mean, both in the physical world as well as the virtual world. I mean, that's exactly the E-Residency stuff. And we want to also be a platform really for these sort of founders really to come together from around the world and work with us and through us. But I mean, my point here is that so in that sense, yes, I have to be a bit more modest, to be honest with you. So, I mean, yeah, Joe said that, you know, we try to be as good as or as fast as the private sector and really the tech sector is. Well, we are only trying to catch up. And I mean, that will always be like that, and I think that's actually good. But I mean, relatively speaking, I'll be arrogant enough to say that, at least from government side, we are committed to not be the barrier. So, and I think that's really why I would argue, and also to you, that, I mean, that commitment has a long track record. That commitment I see transpasses political parties and views and visions. And I mean, that's really is, you know, one of the best shots we have in the world. So, I mean, in that sense, we're committed to really make the most of it, at least from government side too, right? Although I'm not a politician, but regardless, yeah.
So then, given that track record, what initiatives are coming in place in order to repeat that kind of success, whether it's from the E-Residency program or?
Well, I think the main thing, at least my view, and that really goes to the Founderville part as well, I mean, we have to make a long dream true, and that dream has been like code words testbed Estonia, in a sense that we will offer also from government and public sector side at least sort of all the ways we can to really come and try things, build things, bring to market things here, or through Estonia, which is again e-residency, so not just physically here. So it's easier said than done. I mean, but exactly, I'm really hopeful that we sort of get more going in this front. So whether it's basically offering our government IT systems or the digital services we have as a platform that you can come and improve your stuff on, whether it's basically opening up sort of something like data and sort of access to the data in some of the sectors, all the way to health, to come and sort of try the next of innovations here, so forth. I think that should be or quite a strong cornerstone of this approach. And it's not just a theoretical one. I mean, we do see actual interest for this already from outside as well. We just have to move fast to make it happen. Right.
And from our point of view, we're focusing a lot on kind of giving the startup mindset as well, which is really important in all the layers, right? That the government would feel the same way, that they are in the mindset of doing things as agile and fast, but also the industries, but also our children growing up, that they would have the entrepreneurial mindset already in them. So I think that one of the cornerstones will be in the next years as well, like how to bring as early as possible the startup mindset, either programs or just, making children understand how to actually get into that vibe and to boost them then. Yeah.
Is there plans for what's coming in the future, like big initiatives to help accomplish these goals? Is there changes that are coming or that have been demanded?
Oh, you want very certain examples, right?
Well, no, but I'll do it this way. I mean, let's see what to zoom in. But basically, the AI stuff we talked about, that to me is one of the sort of cornerstones to basically tie it here as well. And this is for a few reasons. Obviously, it will be a chance to offer Estonia out as a testbed of Founderville. But even more, that won't be the only benefit. So we are really banking on this also for the reasons because we see so much how we can be more efficient as a government, as a country, when we use this sort of stuff. So AI and sort of all things in this regard is one sense. And mind you, AI is a very, very big buzzword, right? So in that sense, we have to zoom in more clearly. Why do we focus? Perhaps in terms of also industries, perhaps, or let's say, which of industry we see might make the most of it, the most use of it first, also within government. That's one thing. Secondly, from at least sort of the government side again, and I'll let others to complement me, I still go back to the testbed thing. For example, my teams, we're currently working out to see, even also from legal point of view, how can we really come and enable and allow you to come play with our stuff. And so once we have that proof of concept down, clearly next year we'll come back to sort of promoting that more, exactly as a way to really boost both the domestic startups and companies as well as sort of others from abroad to come, really play with us. And then if it works, then scale from that, make it into business, bring development here, whatever else like that. So many people talk about sandbox in a regulatory sense. I see that we actually can offer a sandbox as a country, really. So, and sort of platform in this sense, not just regulation, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, this is just kind of the basis that you can start playing. Mm-hmm. But then I also think that one thing what is more and more coming in, or what we've been missing in the ecosystem, that we think bigger, like the moonshot idea thinking kind of. And I think this will, from next year on, like we see already a lot of the global programs being given here at Robotex X Prize, right, doing their moonshot ideations. And I think we Estonians, the local startup community, we need that more and more, to how to think, even dream bigger, think bigger, and then the sandbox will be very applicable.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, but I'll also kind of give a shout to the private sector here. I think it's really important that the government enables the private sector in a lot of ways. I see the government as clearing roadblocks and enabling innovation and enabling things to happen, whether it's with startups or bigger companies. But I think programs like the Startup Visa that bring in new founders, new ideas, and different perspectives are also critically important, and also allow us to kind of have that exponential scale. I mean, if you have 1.3 million people, but you can get access to ideas through e-residency from an additional community that is unlimited, or you can bring in founders that are experienced from other countries to help build an ecosystem here. I mean, you can really incredibly quickly scale up and leverage them. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, there's way more things. For example, yes, we are building up sort of, capacity to have 5G very early here. I mean, so on, so on. I mean, we can bring many sort of examples, but the whole point is that I see that we have to have a portfolio of things that in a way that exactly we won't just choose one set to do, right? I mean, we'll try to build a platform for as many different players in industries as much as we can. And the last bit, perhaps, I mean, just to give a bit of teaser from some Joe's line of work as well. So I think in the next few weeks we'll come out with new proposals on the next stage of E-Residency as well. And that to me plays here very clearly as well. I mean, E-Residency has had a lot of buzz. We created already very good sort of, economic return from it as well. It's proved its point for us, and now the challenge is really to scale it, right? And so, I mean, that will be a very big part of the story.
Yeah. And that's kind of under wraps for another 2.5 weeks, but we're really excited to be announcing more about what we're doing soon.
Huh, interesting. What are the roadblocks that people like you who are in government or related to government or somehow connected face in pushing the initiatives forward that you maybe personally hope to drive, whether it's e-residency or whatever? Is there roadblocks now? And what can we do to solve them?
I can start. I mean,
Yeah,
talent,
please.
obviously, people. We have way more ideas in companies, in startups, in traditional industry, in government, than people to do them with, right? And obviously, we're trying to optimize and economize as much as we can. But I mean, that's again the reason why consecutive governments have worked so much on, for example, issues on immigration, on IT education, all the way, like here, from small first stages of school to higher education, stuff like that. I mean, that really is an endless job because of our size. But again, like I said, we have way more ideas, so immediately we can put this, more specialists to good use. And I don't mean just techies. I mean all the way to folks who can, manage better, sell better, and stuff like that as well. That's one thing. Secondly, again, if we look more to my line of work, clearly the vision that we sort of share here is not universal yet. It's not shared by all agencies, all managers, stuff like that. I mean, in that sense, the making it really stick is still a challenge. But again, at least we're talking about here what should be, we have the core support that it could be the direction of travel, but we just have to make it stick and sort of all the different, for example, agencies to buy into this and work along with this.
Well, I guess I'll add on from the startup ecosystem part as well, is that the kind of one narrative to lead us, a vision, would be something that is clearly needed, but even more is the talent pool, right? Like Estonia has, this year specifically, again, has raised the record of investments into the successful startups, and we are in constant demand of talent who would actually work for those startups and so start making the money and develop the country, develop the startup further. But I mean, Startup Visa as a program has been working really well. Next year's we're definitely aiming for more quality instead of quantity, so that we work hand in hand with all of the startups and seeing that the employees they get are the ones they actually need. But also from the entrepreneurs' side is that with Startup Estonia, we want to focus on bringing in the founders as well, so that they become the future employers here in Estonia. And they would see a kind of a win in scaling their business from Estonia.
Yeah. On our side, I'll say we also are big believers in adding people to kind of the ecosystem, but our focus is on the digital side. We do see a lot of mix in physical. People come here. We have people who had never heard about Estonia, who heard about it through the E-Residency program, who now do investment here. I mean, Tim Draper is an unbelievable advocate of E-Estonia and kind of everything that has happened because E-Residency kind of brought him into this world. But we also see people who just become students or open local businesses and do things like that. So, but I do think the digital plays a big part in that, and we're going to be working more on kind of connecting these people from around the world who have an interest in Estonia and bringing those ideas together and matching them with Estonia and creating a more valuable kind of social ecosystem there.
In a country with only not even 2 million people, right? It's even crazy for me to say after being here a year. How, trying to bring in so many new people from all over the world, I think there's always the fear of all of this new, especially for a country that's had a rich history, if nothing else. What kind of things does the ecosystem need to improve as far as tolerance? Is there barriers within communities in integrating new people and bringing in hundreds of foreign founders? Or
I think that's a problem almost the entire developed world is having right now. I mean, we see that in every nation that's having to kind of take in influxes of immigrants. I mean, I'm an American, and it's well kind of publicized what's happening in the U.S. right now with different visa bans and things like that. But I don't think that's a solved problem. I think it's just something. It requires a lot of understanding on both sides that there's a rich history here of Estonian people and mixes of cultures, but there's also a rich history of people who are coming, and that it's also bringing in people with the right skills to show that they're actually useful and adding a lot of value for the country.
Yeah, I'll add on to Joel that I also think that it's really important to constantly communicate and raise awareness to the overall public, right? Mm-hmm. But also raise awareness in bringing out how much impact those foreigners who are coming in are actually creating. So one thing what we are trying to do with my team is that we're of course taking care of the overall startup sector, but to look how much additional value are those foreigners bringing in, so that people here, the overall public, would actually understand that these are needed. These skills are lacking here in Estonia, and we need to bring them more in.
From my personal point of view, I think there's also an issue to be thought of and actually managed from the government side. So for quite a number of my colleagues who work on the issues of immigration or cultural policy or even welfare stuff, right? So I mean, in a sense that what is clear, I mean, so this sort of acceptance will not happen just by itself, unfortunately, right? I mean, in that sense, I mean, we do have also a bit of the tough history. And I mean, especially with all things going now, with elections coming up, obviously this will be exacerbated more than sort of just, it's actually, there's a foundation for some political gain. But my point being here that I think exactly it's quite clear, at least for the current government as well, that, exactly the contribution of foreign founders, foreign talents is, unavoidable, right? First of all, and it's exactly very welcome. And secondly, I mean, also the fact that exactly we have to then just manage and make this known, just like Marika says, to also our countrymen and women, that exactly, I mean, it's really for the benefit of all of us. So we need to just manage this discussion, dialogue, and sort of policy as well. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we're starting more on this. Yeah.
I want to take the opportunity to take any questions that might be from the crowd. We've got one here.
Hello, dear panelists. I have two questions for you. First question. Estonia has tried to export its air government and all the air services to the outside of Estonia. Why it has failed? Where's the problems there? And the second question, could you discuss, I think, what is the next steps in our future state is open up this healthcare and gene data for the private sector. Mm-hmm. So please discuss this also.
Let's start from the first one. Well, I don't agree with you that that's been a failure. So I mean, if I look at, let's say, the export revenues of Estonian IT industry from compared to how much we spend annually as a government here, the export revenues are twice what we spend domestically. So in terms of just basically the market. And so obviously, in this sense, I mean, that's been sort of success enough. But the biggest barrier, to be honest, is two things here. First of all, government products, let's put it this way, I mean, there's almost no such thing. They very rarely scale, which means that the jobs you do for the next government, even if you have the experience from Estonia here, it will be very manpower dependent. It's basically custom-made stuff again. And I mean, obviously, we go back to the talent issue. The manpower is the trick here. So literally, I mean, Estonian companies, I agree, there will be way more opportunities to export and sell our experience, but it's very labor-intensive. And that's where we sort of, that's the ceiling or the cap there. From the government side, at least, exactly, we use all the occasions we have to basically exactly open doors for our companies. And so exactly the capacity to then sort of, use those opportunities, that's really the sort of thing to work on. Secondly, so I'll still go back to what I said before. I mean, for me, it's unavoidable that we do become a testbed, not just for the foreigners and sort of, foreign companies and sort of new founders, but also, of course, for the domestic ones, both ways. I mean, there's no need to differentiate between them. We have to open up the sort of systems, the data, sort of, access to that as much as we can so that exactly you or others can build sort of next products for us, with us, on top of the things that sort of we have. I'm giving you a bit of like general answer, but I mean, I see that health, for example, which you brought up, should not be an exception. Yes, we have to manage it differently in health area because of the sensitivity of the data, but I mean, it's unavoidable that we have this framework. And it's also unavoidable from the point of view that our health system needs all the innovation we can have, right? And so we need to boost it also for the sake even of healthier future of Estonians, right? But talking concretely, I think there are quite a few ideas floating on this, proposals floating on this. I hope that already in the next few months, and exactly with once the parliament elections are done, we can move stronger into this field.
Yeah, I'll touch on the first one a little bit. I also have to disagree with you, and maybe I'm in a little bit of a bubble, but every single time I talk to foreign politicians or am on a trip somewhere, someone will say, oh, you're working for Estonia and then working for E-Residency. That's so cool. Or I get government officials, for instance, I was recently in Berlin as well as South Korea, and I constantly get people coming, how can we do what Estonia does? And I will refer them to private companies here, I'll refer them to e-governance academy. And so I think there's a ton of interest, and we see foreign delegations of government officials and private companies coming every single day. So I do disagree a little bit on the first point. I think Estonia is doing an incredible job of kind of selling its expertise, and it builds into this larger kind of narrative as Estonia as a very forward-thinking, democratic, and digitized society that allows you to kind of play a little bit in the bigger leagues in an international arena when we're talking about UN and different, and different kind of and different things like that. But
is there another question from the crowd? Yeah, one in the back. Perfect.
I might add to the last topic about healthcare that healthcare solutions take a lot of time to implement, especially large-scale healthcare solutions. But my question now is of principal nature. So, what is your opinion? Should innovations, especially in the government sector, be outsourced, or should government inside projects in the public sector be more prevalent? So maybe we can touch on it.
Yeah, well, I can start. I mean, I'll give you a very general answer, but I mean, ultimately for us, it comes down to two criteria. Do we have the expertise, or where do we have the expertise? And what's basically the cost and benefits, right, of doing it in-house, doing it outsourced, doing it with sort of partners, stuff like that. We have to, I mean, Estonia, we are still small enough in a sense that also we have to economize on the budgets we have, also from digital spending point of view. I mean, we have been increasing this. I mean, those who know then already, we just managed to get like quite a significant increase into the digital spending we do as a government. But even then, I mean, we can't spend it sort of recklessly. We always have to see what makes more sense. Perhaps some things exactly we keep in-house for that point of view. I'm not even talking about security here, but really for cost and benefit side. Some things we might actually exactly push out way more than we do right now. So this should be the guiding principle, at least from my point of view.
I would also say I don't see it as like a binary option of everything has to go to private sector or everything public sector. I think we, as the public sector, should help enable the private sector, but we should also be looking to innovate ourselves constantly.
And there are clearly, I mean, just one last point, and then clearly some areas where we want to keep really under our belly, and these are the stuff that's really fundamental to how we, how a government, a country runs. So on issues like identity or data sharing and stuff like that, I mean, these are the areas where we want to be strong, because again, our whole government really depends on this daily. So yeah.
I might add why I asked this question is because the recent news that we're trying to lower fire some current officials or like decrease the amount of officials working in the public sector, it inevitably leads to the thing that these jobs will just be taken over by the private sector. So it's just the nature of the issue.
True, but I have a very specific answer to a very specific comment. I think these jobs cuts rarely account for digital professionals. And I mean, that's the other thing we're trying to always put forward with our government is, look, the more we cut, and exactly, I don't mind or I agree that we should be cutting the overall public sector employment, the more actually we have to rely on digital tools and systems, the more we actually need expertise to basically, figure out what we need, architect them, and run them, and procure them in if necessary. So that's me saying that the more our government downsizes, the more there has to be also a structure shift within for the sake of digital specialists. And I mean, but that's what I've seen in different organizations around the world. That's also like a natural course of action in all industries. Yeah.
Awesome. And with that, thank you, panelists, and thank you, audience.
Thank you.